Hello, art historians, and welcome to our final portion of the High Italian Renaissance, where we're going to finish up with Raphael. And Raphael is probably one of the better known of the three masters during this time, and that's mainly because he was so social. Unlike Michelangelo, he preferred to work in a workshop with many different people, which means that a lot of art critics will sometimes say that Raphael doesn't deserve as much applause as Michelangelo or Da Vinci does. But Raphael, he also burned out very quickly. He died at 37. He didn't get a whole lot of time to really make his mark, so his loss was considered a huge, devastating blow to the art community. But what he is known for and kind of gets picked at by the contemporaries he had at the time was almost what they would consider stealing from them in terms of like adopting techniques from Da Vinci, like chiaroscuro or sfumato, or the pyramidal composition that Da Vinci uses, or the bright colors that we see with Michelangelo, although Raphael distinctly uses a lot of bright colors in his works of art. So here's how I explain Raphael in terms of what he viewed as beautiful. He viewed people as beautiful. Humans were beautiful. In all different ways. So what we see him do is I kind of consider him who, if I wanted to get senior pictures done of my kids, or I wanted to have family portraits done, or when my babies were like chubby little newborns, I'd go to Raphael because he could capture the beauty of who they are as people and as human beings, and just find the beauty within them. So he uses techniques that we've already kind of seen developed from Michelangelo and Da Vinci to create his own works of art. One thing he is very big into with that idea of studying from the Greek and Roman past is this idea of rational balance. All right, so this idea that humans can be balanced and the universe can be balanced, and there's good and bad, heaven and hell. So his artworks are generally very, very balanced. So if Jesus is on the left side of this, then there's who is obviously the good in the image, then, and this is St. Peter, obviously. Then on the other side is a bad guy who talked against him. All right, so it's kind of like not just literal visual balance, but like metaphorical balance as well. Like there needs to be beauty in symmetry and balance. So this is where Raphael tends to get kind of looked down upon. All right, there is a lot of time where people will confuse Da Vinci with Raphael. And the difference is here that Raphael's style, because he's so big into color much more, Da Vinci paints with color, but he's much more into naturalistic colors. Raphael uses a lot of bright detail, bright colors, very tonal colors. And he uses this a lot in paintings of Mary and child. So like finding Mary beautiful and women beautiful. He was a huge ladies' man. Like he's right up there with Fra Filippo Lippi, who I talked about last semester. I mean, just loves the ladies, finds a lot of beauty in them, and Mary is a great way for him to do that. And in beautiful babies, and that pyramidal composition is there, and that beautiful linear perspective that he uses is there. And a lot of people say you kind of stole this, and some of your figures look very muscular and very sculpted in terms of how you paint them, so that's a little bit of a Michelangelo look, but Raphael would say this is his own style. So Michelangelo and Raphael had more than Da Vinci by far. Da Vinci was just kind of there and off in his own world, not necessarily in a bad way. But Michelangelo and Raphael just went at it all the time. Like these two were constantly throwing barbs at each other. Raphael was always surrounded by an entourage, always in a workshop. Michelangelo would be like, you're just, all you want is attention. And Raphael would say Michelangelo's a lonely old man and nobody likes him. And Michelangelo would often say, oh yeah, Raphael learned everything he learned from me. In fact, his style comes from him spying on me while I was working on the Sistine Chapel, because Raphael was actually working in the Vatican at the same time that Michelangelo was working on the Sistine Chapel, because he was working on the Pope's private library, but we'll get more to that in a second. Basically, if you take Da Vinci and you combine it with Michelangelo, you have Raphael. Like the two of them together, plus Raphael's idea of everything being symmetrical and balanced, really kind of shows who Raphael was. And this is kind of why. The one on the left obviously being Da Vinci, The one on the right with the much clearer colors, but everything else pretty much the same, is going to be Raphael. Same thing. The left is going to be Raphael. The right is Da Vinci. Oh, excuse me. No, this one's not. That's just another, sorry. No, it's not. This one is not. This one, let's go back to that. That is a different one. This one is not. These are, because I was staring at it, I'm like, nope, those are both Raphael. Raphael loved to paint Madonna and child with the bird, Madonna and child with this. Like, he just did tons and tons of these. And I do want you to kind of notice that in high Italian Renaissance art, especially with Da Vinci and Raphael, the background is just kind of a backdrop. All right, so kind of like if you go to JCPenney or something and you get family portraits done and you choose which background you want, and they kind of put it up and down on a roller, kind of the same idea. The background was just kind of there to create a background to frame the figure. All right, so Raphael's most famous work is probably questionable, but most people believe it's the School of Athens, all right? And the School of Athens is everything about the Renaissance rolled into one painting. In fact, if you're going to put the Renaissance on a shirt, I think the School of Athens would be the shirt that goes with it, because it definitely is signifying a rebirth of the Greek and Roman past. It's the rebirth of Greek and Roman techniques, and it's also this idea of humanism and human thinking and human ability to understand this world, kind of like we saw with the brain in The Birth of Adam, that's Michelangelo's. So important, though, is where the School of Athens is placed. And Raphael was hired by Pope Julius II to paint the frescoes, which are the wall paintings, in his own personal library. And that's a very important part of this, because all of the frescoes together have kind of a theme to it. But this one, in it, the fact that it is heralding back to Athens, a time that is considered pagan to the Christian world, shows that the church, Julius is an intelligent person. He realizes that, yes, they worshiped other gods, but they were intelligent and they had thoughts that inspired other great thinkers, and we owe them. Like, we need to have a tribute to these people from Athens. And it's not just one school of thought, it's lots of schools of thought. It's about debate and conversation and the ideas that they brought, to new understanding. That even in the School of Athens, there are people who are from the Arabic world who use the ideas of the Greeks and Romans. And it's a combination of all of these thoughts and contributions that got humans to where they were. Because remember, God created man, God gave man a brain, he's supposed to use it to rise above the animals, to be closer to God, because they were created in God's image. So what is significant about this is it shows that the church is getting it. They're starting to, maybe not all the way, but embrace this learning and understanding, and it's in the Pope's private library. Like, he's seeing that learning has a place in the church. Like, Julius was definitely a humanist. Now, the School of Athens actually is placed in a modern setting. Remember, Michelangelo doesn't really do that, but Da Vinci and Raphael will. And the setting that the School of Athens takes place in, so even though it's figures from the past and present to some degree, it takes place in the design of the new St. Peter's Basilica that Bramante was making for Pope Julius II. So the architectural background definitely kind of shows this idea that it's taking place now. The ideas of the past are relevant now in this particular world. And the way that the characters are laid out in the scene divides them up. So like there's religion, philosophy, mathematics. I mean, they divide it up into like liberal arts, thinking arts, all of these different things to show these different areas of thinking. So if we look at this, all right, so it's a huge wall fresco in the Pope's private library. And you can see that the design here is based on what Bramante was trying to put together for St. Peter's Basilica. So the past meets the present. It is thinkers from the past who are here in the present, and these ideas are coming into this actual building of this church. Now, it looks like Greco-Roman architecture, but that's what was hot at the time because you're studying Greek and Roman thought. So their architecture was coming back. We've got the barrel vaulted ceilings, the coffering in the ceilings. We've got the Greek sculptures who are there in the background. And what's really cool about this is that from these windows, there is coming this light source and illuminating these people, just like their ideas are illuminating the world as we bring them back into focus. So all of these people in here are considered great thinkers. So right here in the center, you have Plato and Aristotle. And Plato and Aristotle have different theories. Plato believes in thinking, so the upward motion, and Aristotle believes in empirical evidence. So he's pointing down, like you have to see it in this world. You have poets, playwrights, Zoroaster of different faiths. You've got Bramante, the architect. You've got Euclid of geometry. There's so many of these people in here. And then if you look over here in the very far right, Raphael painted himself into this painting to demonstrate that he is among the greatest of minds. Like he is among Ptolemy and the idea of, the universe. He's among Euclid and Bramante and these, great thinkers, and, Pythagoras is in there. So all these ideas that shaped it. So like this is perfectly balanced. It's rational, it's geometric, it's symmetrical. That's a Greek idea, even in the composition. Now, obviously, Raphael would have no idea aside from looking at busts, so like sculptures of these people to figure out what they look like. And he did do that. However, he did right here for Plato use Leonardo da Vinci as a inspiration for it. So Plato actually looks like Leonardo da Vinci, and Michelangelo down here at the bottom, this is actually a poet, and a poet who was very mopey and dramatic, and that's how Raphael viewed Michelangelo. So down here by himself, he painted this guy as Michelangelo. Now people will say it's a tribute to Michelangelo. No, most likely it was actually an insult, but one thing we do know here is we have the pantheon of great thinkers throughout time, and not just all Greek, but some who were influenced by Greek thought or Roman thought, because Athens kind of started that idea of rationalism and humanism that these people follow so deeply. And to add kind of a fun fact to that, I mentioned the word pantheon. Raphael is buried in the Pantheon in Rome. So this is the papal library, and you can see right here, you've got the School of Athens, and then you have different paintings in here, but this is the papal library, and everything painted on the wall is fake, right? It was intended to be like a trompe l'oeil effect, that grisaille of painting sculpture, something he may or may not have gotten from Michelangelo. So that kind of wraps us up, right? And I just want to show you guys some fun paintings. There's an artist from Russia who uses a fat cat named Zarathustra in her paintings. I just wanted to show you some of these. All right, so obviously here's the School of Athens, and cats obviously think that they are godlike because they can push everything off of every surface. So here you go. This is a Raphael, and of course a Da Vinci. And that one's early Renaissance. I just think it's funny. All right, so we're done now with High Italian Renaissance, and we'll be moving into the Venetian Renaissance.